Is Carlsen on tilt at the Qatar Masters? He's now lost to a 2500, a 2600 and drawn with a 2500 who he almost lost to. Well, today he's playing against Gregory Kaidanov, a seasoned pro, 64 years old. Surely Magnus wins this one. Well, who knows this tournament, right? So he kicks off here with d4. The rock solid London system now appears on the board. No messing from Magnus with weird and quirky openings. We get c5, e3, knight c6, Magnus sets up the pawn triangle, or I recently heard it called the party hat, if you want to go with that one. We get knight f6, knight d2, and now here in this London system, if you're not going to fianchetto, this bishop either comes to f5 or you go e6 like we see in this game, and then very often this bishop is fianchettoing. But what we see here after Magnus develops is takes on d4 already, pawn recaptures and knight h5. Bit of a quirky sideline. So black going after the bishops, because after bishop e3, bishop d6, bishop d3, the knight now lands on f4, preparing to win that really strong d3 bishop. And so here white takes with this one, best move. Yes, you've got the bishop pair, but that all took some time. And after castles, rook e1, bishop d7, that is not exactly the most beautiful bishop pair you've ever seen. You know, that one is seriously hemmed in. So Magnus now goes knight b3. He's going to try and stir something up on the queen side. Meantime, Kaidanov's going to look for this sort of stuff, hopefully liberate this bishop one day. Now with knight c5 threatened, Stockfish wants to cover with bishop d6. Bring that one back on side. Kaidanov goes pawn b6. Does make some sense, but you weaken some light squares there. So queen e2 begins to target. We get g6, slightly slow. You know, you could have already gone f6. I'm not entirely sure why that move was played at this particular moment. But that was on the board. a4 from Magnus. Now we get f6, looking for this in future. And after bishop b5, pressuring that knight, queen c7 adds some defense, and a5 from Magnus. He's slightly quicker to the punch here, launching the pawns, a kind of minority attack, 1 on 2 pawns over here. We get rook ae8, abandoning the a file, but looking for central counterplay. Often a very good idea when you're getting attacked on a flank. Now we get g3 from Magnus. He kicks back that bishop. It decides to go to that diagonal around the king. It was kind of biting on granite here. And now after takes, pawn takes, Magnus goes c4. He's first to the punch in the center. So we get captures. The queen recaptures, and it's already x-raying some nasty diagonals and unprotected pieces. And so that's why queen d6 was played. But rook c8 was better, keeping the queen in connection with this pawn. But queen d6 on the board, Magnus now invades, hits that pawn, the rook covers, bit passive, and here Magnus uncorks a brilliant move. When you run it with the game review, it gets the double exclam, and it's the first of 2 to come. There's another one on the way. Now, can you find the move here? What's the best way for white to go? It's all connected with the pressure on this knight. So well done if you found the move. It's knight to c5. Fantastic idea, because if this pawn captures, well now there's pawn takes back, hitting the queen, and you just can't save the knight. Because if you play queen c7, very natural, well now you can take, bishop recaptures, and you crash through here with check. That's the key. King slides, the bishop drops. So that's why if you capture with the pawn and kick the queen, it can't come to c7. What if queen d5? You know, you try this one. Well, then after captures, this one still drops off. You're winning back your material. Now I'm showing this line because here, black does restore the material, takes that pawn. But the problem after knight d4 is the quality of the pieces. The rook's blasting on open files. The better minor piece for white. The passed pawn further down the board. This is good for white. So Kaidanov plays the best move here. In response to this one, he takes on d4. Very tricky move. Looks impossible because now the knight can take this bishop and fork the rooks, but then there's takes with check. And when the king goes, the knight also drops. And after the smoke clears, it's actually black who's doing well here. A minor piece up, it's game over. So Magnus doesn't touch this bishop. He instead plays knight takes on d4. There's still no pawn captures. You know, this time the rook is pinning that pawn to the queen. And so the queen now takes this knight. And again, things are very tricky. So if you capture, which looks tempting, well now pawn recaptures, hitting the knight. We get bishop takes here, pawn takes, bishop takes check, king goes, and again, materials level, but this time white doesn't have too much. You've got opposite coloured bishops, very drawish. So we did not see queen takes on c5. Instead, Magnus goes for rook a7. Just to show you one more, you can take here as well. Top engine move. Looks impossible because the queen drops, but then there's this check, forking them back, and here still white is doing okay. But Magnus goes rook a7. Very tricky move, because this time, if bishop captures here, there's takes with check, the king goes, and knight recaptures. The tactics here are crazy. Not what you want when you're 64 years old, right? Now, the problem here is if queen captures knight, you've left the defense of e7, the queen slides, you're threatening mate, you cannot stop that, but start giving stupid checks and giving up pieces. So, this is why we didn't see, getting myself confused now, we didn't see bishop takes on b5, we saw the rook defending that bishop. Now b4, Magnus forcing this queen exchange. Finally we get a capture. Finally, as a chess YouTuber trying to tell you what's going on, I can breathe again because the tactics aren't insane. This time we get rook fe8, logical, defending the pawn. I can explain that one, but this is classy from Magnus. So instead of taking here and crashing through, liquidating, where yes, white has a small edge, but nothing huge, he goes pawn b5 to set up a clamp. This is awesome. So the bishop retreats to c8, opens the rook, attacking this knight. It jumps into c6. Rook d6 played, very natural. And now rook c7 from Magnus, defending, attacking, and there's now ideas of this and this and this, and switching into the 7th rank. So bishop d7 played, rook a1. This bishop nudges back to f8 to try and support some defense. We get the rooks doubling on the 7th. Too much pressure on that bishop. You can't live with it. You know, the knight also covers this square, so you can't add defense. So it chops on c6. Pawn recaptures. We get check, king g2, and rook c1. Hitting that bishop. The computer wants bishop a6 here, but Magnus's move good too, even though the evaluation bar drops slightly on the left. And now the thing to understand here is, say you just wait, well the threat that white has got here is to move this rook to the side and start running the pawn. You know, this bishop blocks this rook from actually taking that pawn off the board. And if you ever come across like this to come in front of the pawn, well then you can start pushing, I was going to say. Although the computer says go rook f7, even more accurate. But anyway, the pawn starts running very soon. So b5 was played, distracting this bishop, yes, but then allowing rook c5. You're no longer being trapped off the c-file, you're behind the pawn. Magnus comes back to c4 with the bishop, pressuring here. We get bishop d6, hits that rook, it goes away to b7. Why does the pawn not get taken now? Well, bishop b5 skewers the rook, wins an exchange, good for white. So instead, we see a different move played, but a blunder. What should black do? Something like g5 or h5. You just have to try and wait. But Magnus can continue probing. But king h8 played, and this is a problem. Again, there's a tactic. Do pause if you want to look for this. Again, on game review, it's called a brilliant move when you see it played, when you analyze it. The move to play here is bishop takes on e6. Finally, Magnus wins that horrible pawn, which has been weak for ages. And the problem with capturing is you get mated on the back rank. You get embranked. Now you block with the bishop, you have to chuck pieces, and this is a checkmate. I mean, it's not quite a back rank. Obviously, that would be a pure back rank, but okay. Second rook does the job. So, the bishop not captured. Rook e7 played, but now takes, Bishop captures, check, king g7, this one comes back. Magnus obviously with a huge time advantage again, and after this rook takes, sorry, if you cover the pawn, the bishop, this is a problem because you run the pawn through, it's about to queen, nothing you can do. So that's why black takes here, drops a minor piece, but okay, this was the final position. You're literally a bishop down, that is game over. So Magnus, he's steadied the ship slightly. He does get the job done today. He's back at it. Can he make some kind of comeback in this tournament? I hope you enjoyed. Do hit that subscribe button to never miss a future video, and see another epic game of chess, check out the video on screen. Thanks very much for watching, and see you soon.